Welcome back to my garden. This week's video is a call to arms of sorts, a rallying cry, the start of a revolution. That's probably overstating it. First of all, it's not the start, this has already started. Many people are doing what I would like to suggest. And when one says a call to arms, well, it's perhaps overstating the case a little. No violence involved. A passive revolution. No, passive again is the wrong word. But it is a revolution. What I believe is, and I've been fleshing this out over the last few weeks and months, that we behave in a way that is entirely, many of us, in the Western world and beyond. We behave in a way that is against our best interests, that is against our deepest motivations, our core principles and values. In short, we are manipulated into propping up a status quo and a regime that favours very few of us. Well, that's not exactly true. Actually, if you're watching this video, the status quo, as I see it, certainly does favour us. I am one of I suppose, a small group of people who have everything that they need in extraordinary abundance. I suspect you are too. We live truly wonderful lives. And yet, all the same, on a more meaningful, on a deeper level, we are being actively manipulated and repressed. Now, I don't want to suggest that this is something entirely new. Societies across the ages have always relied on some element of coercion and some sort of strategy to convince the majority to do things in the interests of the few. Now, I don't think that was always the case. I've spoken before on this channel how those that argue that this is instinctual, this is deeply rooted in what it means to be human, that this is how people have always been, and this is how we came down from the trees, out from the plains and into the cities and the success that civilization brought. But actually, if we're talking about what is deeply rooted in the human experiment, so to speak, well, it is being cooperative. And it's not working 60-hour weeks. Not at all. And if we look at the sort of echoes of primitive societies, peoples that still live in a way that seems unchanged from millennia past, they do what is necessary, but much of their time is spent in leisure and play, in rest. And the societies are organized around a principle that everybody should benefit from the fruits of the labor. Our modern era, sort of global order, requires vast numbers of us to work in a way that is, as I say, against our best interests. To commit ourselves to behavior on a treadmill of ever diminishing marginal returns. And how are we convinced to do that? Well, it's not in many societies by physical coercion, but it is by being sold an unrealizable dream. And at the heart of the matter is a logical conundrum. If we are all pursuing the very pinnacle, if success is determined by coming out on top as a big winner amongst a sea of small losers in a zero-sum game, well, most people are going to be losers, that by definition. And that is, I believe, the state that if you're watching this video, that you and I find ourselves in. And so my call to arms is that we have to resist this. Resist, reject. But the revolution will be from the inside out. A sort of, not so much passive resistance, but an opting out. A conscious decision to not play the game. Now, one of the first steps in doing this is accepting that this is the state that the world finds itself in. That we are over-consuming, and that we are, to trot out one of the sort of cliched memes of our modern age, we're working harder to buy stuff that we don't want to impress people that we don't like. And we're working ever harder. We're on a treadmill. And I think there's probably, if you watch this video regularly, this channel regularly, I suspect this resonates with you. Now, opting out quietly, gently, doesn't mean going into full survivalist mode. It doesn't mean joining some sort of Amish culture society, or going to live out in the woods, foraging for what you can find. No, I think our first step is in recognizing what we actually need, what we truly desire to live a meaningful, purposeful, joyful life. And once we recognize what that is, and this comes at the end of a process of introspection, I suspect you, like me, will realize it is much less than perhaps on the surface you thought. Perhaps you already have it. Of course, this can be complicated by external pressures and factors. If you're in a family unit, you might recognize something, but others in your family might not. So it may be a slow process, a subtle adjustment. But adjust we must. And I think the really difficult, violent, revolutionary part of this is that eventually what we all need to do is to, I'm going to put this in melodramatic terms, but we're going to have to destroy an older version of ourselves. And I recognize this with my own particular struggles. And I say that not in the sense that, I'm feeling overwhelmed or leading a hard, depressing life. Again, as I frequently say, I lead a marvelous life, a wonderful life. But what I do recognize is that if I'm going to do the things that I truly want to do, be the person I truly want to be, and make the contribution which I believe I can, this requires killing off a version of myself. One element of that, for example, and again, these videos are proving to be something of a summary at the moment, so do forgive me for repeating myself, but sometimes that is necessary. But a good example of a person that I became over time was Neil the football fanatic actually. And I'd always been a bit of a football fan. I fell into it as a part of a shared culture, and that's fine. But at a certain point, it became a problem. And I think the moment that my football fandom became a problem for me was when media sort of became 24/7, where you could watch games literally every waking moment of your day, where when you'd finished watching the games, you could follow a non-stop news cycle and media circus surrounding the world of football. Now, why did I fall into that particular trap? I mean, partly it's something connected, I suppose, with a core element of my ego identity, that at school I sort of became the person who knew, one of the people who knew an enormous amount of trivia, and people would be impressed by that, and I would be pleased that they were impressed. And I suppose I've sort of built on that over the years, and it's become a thing that I like to be the person who knows a bit more, who has more facts at their fingertips, who can argue a case strongly. It sort of gave me a kick, an ego boost. But is it something that is it someone I really want to be? No. Does it serve me or other people in any interesting, meaningful sort of way? Again, no. Does it potentially provoke arguments, tension, discomfort, even physical confrontation? Well, yes, it has. And I don't want to be that person. And slowly over time, I've found myself pulling away. I have a long way to go, but it's a process I've started. And of course, the algorithm is cunning, and the moment you leave one source of media, it throws something else your way. But I think the algorithm is trainable. So even if initially all you're doing is substituting distractive habits for something that is more beneficial for you, well, that is at least a step in the right direction. So that's what I want to do. I guess the beginning of the revolution that I'm talking about starts with oneself. But where do we go from there? How do we reshape society? And I mean that in a grand sense. And I think it's a sort of an existential question from the point of view of all that is good, I believe. Well, that's a big question, but I've rambled on enough, introduced it, thrown it out there. As always, let me know what you think. Let's see where this one goes. Otherwise, I trust your lives are filled with joy. And from a sunny Brazil, till next week, ciao.